Most of the people that came to the Ponevez Shul had retired or they didn't have jobs. They were the older generation. The younger generation were few and far between. But they always had a minyan, both morning and evening, Friday night and Saturday. They always had a minyan, and the bima was free for anybody to daven. There were a few strange characters there. There was one man called Alter Ginsberg. Now, Alter Ginsberg had some sort of problem, and he went to Grootskeur Hospital, the outpatient department, for treatment. And they diagnosed, I don't remember exactly what they diagnosed, but they gave him pills. I think one of the pills was a pill called digitalis. And they told him to take one 3 times a day or one twice a day. But he thought if they said one twice a day, if one was good, then probably 2 or 3 times a day was much better. So eventually landed up in the casualty department having been poisoned.
There were strange characters in those days. And again, they all lived in and around this area.
People were pretty simple, not sophisticated. None of them were very well learned.
They had pianists, they had people that they were gangsters, they card sharpers, everything. And then again, they liked the horse races also. A lot of them that worked at the Ospowitz furniture in the Ronan Street. Now, Ospowitz made sure that the wives came. He said, on Friday, I want your wives to come here. I'll pay for them. And he gave the wives the money because they complained that the husband should take the money either on drink or otherwise on the horses.
Mr. Schneider, who was actually the gubber of the shul at some stage. He was a fishmonger. He had a fish shop, 7 daughters, no sons. He was a gambler, and he didn't work very hard. The one who worked hard in the family was his wife.
Everybody who ever bought fish would buy fish from Mrs. Schneider.
And he said as long as his wife was able to work, he'd make a living. And all his daughters got married and they did very well for themselves.
We have the grandson, Bess,
yes.
who comes here. His grandmother was Mrs. Schneider, and the daughter is still alive. She's 95 and she's still living in Australia.
Yeah.
He used to know exactly who the favorite for the races was for the Shabbat, and he always was waiting for the results to see if it won some money.
Yankee Schneider was the king of the horses. Funny enough, he knew so much about horses that the way he lost it was unbelievable. A man who could write books about horses and forms and which horse is going to win, and he was one that lost. But he had to watch them support the horses. But Yankee made a law on Shabbos, 11 o'clock, it must end, come what may. Whether it's winter, summer, you must end 11 o'clock. Why? He had to go to the bank to draw out money to go to the races on Saturday. So he got a lift to the races at about 11:15, and Yankee was there. And Yankee was saying, well, the bookies, they liked Yankee because they made a living from Yankee and a couple of thousand like him.
Siegel used to do all the jackpots, but Schneider went to the race course, and with the first race commencing at 12, this shul had to close by 11:30. Service had to end so that he could get to the Milnerton Turf Club in time for the first race. Siegel was notorious for this. Siegel had a name for each of the guys in the shul over here, and some people liked it, some people didn't. We had a fellow used to come here on a regular basis, darkish fellow, middle-aged man, and Siegel called him the Black Jew. And one day, Siegel called him the Black Jew. He was davening And he turned around on the bimmer, and he gave Siegel hell. He said, "You have no right to call people black Jews and this and that." And he walked out and never ever came back. So here was a case where Siegel thought it was funny. He didn't think it was funny. But there are a lot of guys who enjoyed being given different names.
He was Stavros.
I was Stavros.
And I was Michael.
When I said, "Why Stavros?" he says, "Stavros was the king of food," which is rubbish.
Yeah, and I was Michael Jackson.
But he was given a name. He was called Zoberblatt. Zoberblatt was his real name. His father was Zoberblatt, but changed it because he didn't want to go and serve time in the Russian army. And so he changed his name to Siegel, which was the wife's maiden name. But Mendel Toby knows it, so Mendel Toby never ever called him Siegel. He would always call him Zoberblatt. Yes, we knew him as Screwy Louis. Gamarov was called Cham. Right? Gammy he called Cham. They once had a discussion over here about music, and the one fellow says, "Look, my choice in music is very Catholic." So Gammy says, "I also like Catholic. I like Perry Como, and he was a Catholic." Yeah, he would call Alec Moff, right?
Yeah.
The father was Old Man Moff.
The chap who used to do the reading of the Torah was a Mr. Rosenstein. I think his Hebrew name was Yena Leib. He was a big fat fellow with a smiling face, always smiling.
They used to lay in. Mm-hmm. And he bought and sold boxes and so on. And he had a horse and cart. He parked the horses and the wheel, and they went and must have just touched his stomach. So everyone said, well, even if it went over his stomach, then nothing would have happened because Rosenstein is too fat. I mean, the fat protects him. But Rosenstein had a good appetite.
They always were interested in a bracha. If there was a Oneg Shabbat, they all came. Most of them didn't bring anything. There were one or two people who delivered a certain amount of liquor and certain amount of cakes and herring, pickled herring and chopped herring was the favorite.
And once I'll never forget, they made a big party. It was on for the Shabbos. It was Rosh Chodesh, and for Mincha, a couple of things they put it in the deep freeze by mistake, and it was frozen. The putzah was frozen, the liver got frozen, and a few other things were frozen. Well, you can't eat it when it's like a block of ice. So I said, look, we can't have it for breakfast, for the morning, for the brocha. Let's have it for mincha. There's shalashudas. We'll have it for shalashudas. There's kitkas. There's other things there. We've got mustard there and what else? And they had some meats there, pickled meat and other meats there, sausages, polonies. So I said, all right, look, there's a hell of a lot left over, so we'll have it for mincha. So what happened was that they came there, and Rosenstein had the key. And they waited, and we want to start at 5 o'clock, and Rosenstein is asleep. So the wife said, look, they went to the wife, said, here's the key, open it because I don't want to wake him up. So I opened the door, and unfortunately, Rosenstein had been there before, and all the food now had thawed out. So he had a little meal there. After he came back, it was a hell of a lot over, but he felt sleepy. So he thought he'd have a little rest. He only opened at 5 o'clock. This must have been about 3:30. So he lay down for a little sleep. He said a dremel, that's a small dream. Unfortunately, that dremel lasted quite a long time, and we nearly missed mincha that afternoon. But of course, they came in, and then Rosenstein came in. So I said, Mr. Rosenstein, what happened there? So I said, look, I came in to see if everything's right. I put it right. And I said, look, I also thought, look, there's so much food, I'll have a little bite. So I had a bite, and I went back. And says, unfortunately, I fell asleep there. Says, in the sleep, you can't tell the time. So I overslept.
There was a Mr. Back. Mr. Back was a a fellow who stayed very near, in Scott Street, he stayed very near the shul. He was a fisherman. He had a motorcycle, a three-wheeler, that the police used to have. And he'd made this thing, he'd converted an ordinary motorbike into this three-wheeler, and used to take his fishing rods and go down to the dock area to fish. I'm not sure if he caught anything. He must have been in the Russian army or at some stage, because he always walked around with guns. I'm not sure if they were loaded, I'm not sure if they worked, but he felt that he needed these guns.
He and Rosenstein became arch enemies, and they used to. He cursed Rosenstein. Rosenstein cursed him in return, and I remember he said, "Look, I got 2 revolvers." So Rosenstein said, "Well, shoot me if you want. I'm not scared." So he said, "I can't." So he says, "Why?" He said, "Because you got too much. You're too fat." He says, "The bullet will stick in the fat. It won't get through your stomach." But you know, but it was nice, the way the banter that went on there was terrific. The curses that went on with Rosenstein and that, he was a chief curser. I'll never forget what's name with Beck. I don't know why they took it. And first of the best of friends. And funny, their wives were very friendly. So Rosenstein even, so he says to, he said, in Yiddish, he says, "I'll spine up there, I'll spit on you." So Rosen says, "Do it, but spine with blood." But he says, "Spit on me, but spit with blood." So he got such a shock when he heard that he stopped cursing. Then they stopped, and your grandfather said, "Look, what's this cursing going on like this?" He says, "It's a shul." He says, "Instead of blessing one, yeah, you're getting the curses." Rosenstein would say, "Okay," with everyone else. He was, he used to bring a fish down then, they smoke it.